Our state by nature is our sin, how deep it stains. And Satan binds our captive minds, fast in his slavish chains.
What would you say if I told you I loved the wrath of God? I love the doctrine of the hatred of God. Consider me weird? Probably, particularly in today's day. One of my favorite authors, Arthur Pink, in his book The Attributes of God, stated that quite often the wrath and the hatred of God is apologized for, or it's considered a blemish upon the divine character. In my experience today, it's glossed over, or it's confessed by conservative churches. But in practice, from the pulpit during Sunday school, it's 90% God's love and 10% God's wrath. And even then, when it's mentioned, it's in passing. It's considered an embarrassment, or truth is, we don't like that part about God. We just prefer to focus on the positive aspects of God that benefit us. But for me, there's no more benefit than the wrath of God. I love it. Brings peace and comfort and hope. It's a joy, and it brings to me, by the work of the Spirit, a sense of awe and reverence and worship for God. I'm grateful for his hatred. But what's even more troubling is just it's all over the Bible. Just title of the video, Does God Hate People? From one end of the book to the other, it's there. From the Torah to the historical books, to the poetic books, to the major and minor prophets, through the New Testament. It's there. Paul's epistles to John's writings. It's there. Time and time again. The Gospels. It's there. Psalm 5:5, you hate all workers of iniquity. Not the works. Not, I hate the sin, but love the sinner. The worker. States he abhors the bloodthirsty and the deceitful. Proverbs 3, it says he hates the perverse person. 1 Samuel 2, it calls us his adversaries. Romans, it calls us his enemies. What about the word pictures in the Bible? But first, in my life, I've written a bunch of these verses down. I've got 18 pages, 18 to 25 verses on each page. Front and back, 18 pages of verses over the years where I write down something where I can see the hatred and the wrath of God. There are far more passages in the Bible on the wrath and the hatred of God than there is on his love. But we ignore the wrath for his love. But what about the word pictures in the Bible? In the prophets, it calls the wicked his prey. It pictures God with a bow and arrow, and he whets his arrow, and he hunts down all the wicked and shoots them down with his arrows. It pictures God with a sword, cutting down the wicked, his enemies. It pictures God as a king leading his armies to destroy the wicked and basically evict them from the face of the earth. I want to get even more graphic. In Psalms, it says his people will one day dance in the blood of the wicked. In Revelation 14, no matter how you interpret or approach Revelation, you can't get away from this idea. And at some point, God's going to crush the wicked like you would a grape under your feet, and the blood will flow like a river. In the prophets, it depicts on that final day that God will destroy the wicked, and from miles on end, their dead bodies, bleeding, cut open, whatever, will be left as an example so that the birds of the prey will feast on them for years. Graphic, huh? That's the doctrine of the hatred of God. And while most people today view it as a blemish, as Pink says, it is every bit to divine perfection, as is his love. But let's go on. How about the most graphic display of God's anger, of God's hatred? The cross. What was it that made Christ sweat drops of blood to fear that cup so dreadfully? He wasn't scared of anything. Yet that day, the physical stress is causing him to sweat blood. And for you and for me, the sinless Son of God, the Lamb of God, all of that hatred that was meant for us, he took upon himself. As it states in Isaiah, God crushed him. And in hell, what do you think's going on? The full fury and hatred and wrath of God upon those people for eternity. Now, if you comment on this video, please, don't you dare quote to me the love of God, like John 3:16, as if it erases all those other verses. Don't bring up the fact that don't bring up the idea, not the fact, that well, that was the God of the Old Testament and this is the God of the New. No, it's in both. This can be traumatizing. I'll finish with some quotes. And I hope you consider this subject. It's all throughout the Bible. I could have made this longer and just drawn it out, but I didn't want to make it any longer. It'll go to about 9 minutes anyway, I think. So, enjoy these quotes. Consider this subject. And until next time, remember that you were made for Him. Enjoy these quotes.